At 8,000 meters over wartime Germany, the cold hits first. Outside the aircraft, temperatures hover near -40 degrees Celsius. It is the kind of cold that freezes oil if the heaters fail. Inside the bomber, eyes stay fixed on an endless blue sky. Crews scan for tiny black dots that might grow into enemy fighters. Then something tears straight through the formation. There is no familiar propeller chopping the air. Instead, a sound cuts through everything. A sharp, compressed scream, violently unnatural. It sounds like metal ripping apart. Foresee, like heavy fabric torn by immense force. A blurred streak flashes past before the eyes can focus. It is April 1944. At that moment, few realize they have just seen what comes next. The aircraft is the Messerschmitt Me 262. The Germans call it the Schwalbe, the Swallow. Allied crews struggle to describe it. Some say it feels unreal, like something not meant to be there. There is no propeller anywhere on the machine. Two Junkers Jumo 004 jet engines hang beneath the wings. They drive it to 870 kilometers per hour. Hundreds faster than any propeller fighter in the sky. Mustangs and Spitfires chase at full throttle. The jet does not turn. It simply pulls away, slipping into cloud before gunners can react. American pilots faced that speed in something entirely different. They flew the P-47 Thunderbolt. Most simply called it the Jug. Seen up close, elegance was never part of the design. The aircraft is bulky, heavy, shaped more like a warehouse than a racer. Fully loaded with fuel and ammunition, it weighs nearly 8 tons. That is roughly twice the weight of a British Spitfire. It also outweighs Germany's Bf 109 by a wide margin. No other single-engine fighter in the war carried that much mass. Lifting it skyward was the Pratt & Whitney R280. 18 cylinders, arranged in 2 massive rows. Together, they deliver 2,000 horsepower. When the pilot pushes the throttle forward, the reaction is immediate. Torque hits hard. The 4-meter propeller fights to twist the aircraft sideways. Inside the P-47, pilots notice something unusual. They feel protected. They are not sitting behind fabric or thin aluminum skin. They sit inside an armored steel bathtub. Ahead of them, the engine itself can absorb incoming fire. Behind them, a thick steel armor plate guards their back. Below, turbocharger ducts run the length of the fuselage, forming a rigid spine. Alexander Kartveli never intended this aircraft to be graceful. It was built to move forward, absorb damage, and come back. By 1944 and 1945, these aircraft met regularly. The Me 262 was fast. Stunningly, but fast. Its engines were technical marvels, but sensitive and unpredictable. Move the throttle too quickly, and flames could appear without warning. Engine life was counted in hours, not months. The P-47 came from a different mindset. It relied on mass, structure, and mechanical strength. On paper, that should have been a disadvantage. Combat rarely follows paper rules. German fighter chief Adolf Galland flew the Me 262 himself. He admired it deeply. Yet one American fighter concerned him more than any other. The P-47. Galland described the problem without drama. You could hit it, punch holes through it, watch smoke pour from the fuselage, and still, it kept flying home. Over the next 30 minutes, this story avoids dry charts and tables. It stays close to the cockpit, to vibration, noise, fuel fumes, and fear. Because speed alone never decided who survived. This is the story of the immortal. Look beneath the aluminum skin, where the real behavior of these aircraft is decided. Start with the Me-262. Starting it was never simple. Inside the sharp nose intake sat a small, two-stroke starter engine. It worked much like a lawnmower motor. Crude, noisy, unmistakably primitive. Ground crews pulled a cord by hand to bring it to life. Only then could the jet engines begin to turn. For the most advanced aircraft of the war, the process felt oddly archaic. The Jumo 004 came from necessity rather than comfort. Germany lacked heat-resistant metals but nickel and cobalt. Engineers turned to aluminum-coated steel for turbine blades instead. That choice carried consequences. Under stress, the engine behaved unpredictably. Typical engine life ranged from 10 to 25 flight hours. For pilots, that meant flying with machinery already close to its limits. The greatest danger appeared when power was changed too quickly. In combat, instinct tells a pilot to push the throttle forward and escape. In the Me-262, that reaction could be fatal. If fuel surged faster than compressed air could follow, temperatures spiked. Weak metals failed almost immediately. Engines flamed out. Sometimes they caught fire instead. Pilots learned to treat the throttle carefully. Power had to be fed in slowly, almost gently. Speed was available, but only if handled with restraint. Now turn to the P-47. It relied on the Pratt & Whitney R-280 Double Wasp. 18 air-cooled cylinders arranged in two massive rows. There were no coolant radiators. No fragile plumbing waiting to be punctured. This engine tolerated abuse. Lose one cylinder to cannon fire, but 17 kept pulling. Lose most of the oil, it could still fly for miles. American pilots pushed throttles hard without hesitation. The engine rarely surprised them. In moments of panic, it did not turn against its pilot. Weapon choices followed the same pattern of decision-making. The Me-262 carried 430mm Mk108 cannons. Pilots respected them for their sheer destructive power. They fired thin-walled mine shells filled with high explosives. A handful of hits could tear a B-17 apart. One solid impact could destroy a fighter outright. Accuracy, however, was another matter. Muzzle velocity sat around 500 meters per second. Shells dropped quickly after leaving the barrel. Pilots compared the experience to throwing heavy stones through the air. To score hits, you had to close dangerously near. British test pilot Eric Brown described the problem clearly. At closing speeds near 800 kilometers per hour, timing was unforgiving. Effective range stayed under 600 meters. Breaking away to avoid collision had to happen near 200 meters. That left only seconds to aim and fire. With curved or trajectories, success often came down to chance. The P-47 approached the problem differently. It did not depend on a single decisive strike. It depended on sustained volume. 850 caliber machine guns lined the wings. Pressing the trigger released roughly 100 rounds per second. Instead of precision, pilots filled the air ahead with fire. 50 caliber bullets lacked explosive force, but they flew fast and straight. More importantly, many carried incendiary compounds. The Me-262 stored kerosene fuel throughout its wings and fuselage. A single, incendiary round through thin aluminum could ignite it instantly. In moments, a jet could turn into a burning wreck. The final difference appeared in how aircraft were built around the pilot. Alexander Kartveli designed the P-47 with redundancy in mind. Look at the main wing spar. the backbone of the airframe. At the roots, it was a solid forged aluminum block nearly 4 inches thick. That strength served a purpose. The structure could tolerate 12 G maneuvers without failure. By comparison, a Messerschmitt Bf-109 risked structural damage at much lower loads. The P-47 absorbed punishment without protest. That margin allowed extreme high-speed dives from altitude. Pilots approached transonic speeds without fear of wings tearing away. German designers, pressed by time and shortages, placed priority on performance. Protection often came second. American engineers made different trade-offs. The P-47 became large, heavy, and fuel-hungry. In return, it shielded the pilot inside layers of metal. Aircraft could be replaced quickly on factory lines. Experienced pilots could not. That reality shaped the design, the choices. Survival mattered more than elegance. In combat, endurance often outweighed speed. Go back to June 26, 1943. Robert S. Johnson is flying as Tail End Charlie. Among fighter pilots, it is the position no one wants. Attacks come from behind. By the time you notice, it is usually too late. That morning, the warning arrives without ceremony. 16 German FW-190 fighters dive out of the sun. They belong to Jagdgeschwader 26, veterans of countless engagements. Within seconds, Johnson's P-47, named Half Pint, is torn apart. 21:20. A millimeter cannon shells strike the aircraft. A single shell of that size can punch through brick. Johnson's fighter absorbs 21 of them. The hydraulic system ruptures. Scalding fluid floods the cockpit. It blinds him. It burns his eyes and skin. His face swells almost immediately. Vision collapses into a haze of pain and light. Shrapnel cuts across his nose, mixing blood with hot hydraulic oil. Then the engine catches fire. Flames curl along the fuselage, creeping toward the cockpit. The aircraft drops, no longer fully under control. Johnson reaches for the canopy. The rails are warped by gunfire. The heavy canopy lifts barely 6 inches, then stops. There is no way out. He is sealed inside a burning aircraft over Germany. At that point, there are no options left. Then, unexpectedly, the fire disappears. No one knows exactly why. The self-sealing fuel lines may have held. The slipstream may have torn the flames away. Johnson pulls back on the controls. The 8-ton aircraft shudders. Slowly, it begins to climb again. Oi. The fight is not over. An FW-190 slides into position directly behind his tail. This moment hides an important detail. The German pilot has already expended his 20mm cannon ammunition. Some accounts identify him as Egon Mayer, though historians still debate it. Only 2 7.92mm machine guns remain. The pilot fires. Rounds hammer into the Thunderbolt. Johnson can do nothing but press himself deeper into the seat. Then he hears it. A sound that stays with him for the rest of his life. Bullets strike the steel armor plate behind his head. Each impact rings like a bell inside the cockpit. That plate absorbs rounds meant for his spine. Johnson stomps on the rudder pedals. The aircraft yaws violently from side to side. The motion ruins the German pilot's aim again and again. 3 firing passes tear into the tail, wings, and fuselage. The P-47 remains airborne. It keeps moving forward. From behind, the sight makes no sense. With his ammunition gone, the German pilot closes in once more. He sees an aircraft riddled with holes. He sees a pilot's face smeared with blood, on an oil. The German shakes his head. He rocks his wings slowly, a gesture of respect. Then he turns away toward France. He does not expect the wreck to reach England. Johnson heads for Manston Airfield. The hydraulic system is gone. There are no brakes, no flaps. The Thunderbolt hits the grass runway at frightening speed. Dust erupts as control nearly vanishes. Johnson forces a ground loop using full rudder. The aircraft skids, spins, then slides backward. It comes to rest between parked Spitfires. Ground crews have to smash the canopy open to pull Johnson out. They count the damage. 21 cannon holes. More than 200 bullet impacts. One 20mm shell is lodged behind the head armor. It did not explode. Had it done so, Johnson would have been killed instantly. The aircraft is written off as beyond repair. Johnson is not. 4 days later, he returns to combat in another P-47. He continues flying. He goes on to become one of America's leading aces. Years later, German ace Heinz Baer reflects on encounters like this. The P-47 mattered because it kept pilots alive, he said. Wars are decided by survivors, not fallen heroes. That is the Thunderbolt's quiet truth. It did not prevent damage. It gave pilots time, margin, and a way home. By 1944, the Me-262 ruled the sky in one respect. Nothing else could touch its speed. That speed, however, came with limits that could not be ignored. They lived inside the throttle system. Early jet engines responded slowly. Very slowly. In a P-47, pushing the throttle forward brought immediate acceleration. In the Me-262, the same reaction could destroy the engine. Pilots called the problem throttle lag. If fuel surged faster than airflow could increase, temperatures rose instantly. Metals failed. Engines flamed out. Sometimes they caught fire instead. This changed everything during takeoff and landing. At low speed, the fastest fighter in the world became vulnerable. Runways had to be long. Power changes had to be gentle. On approach, pilots planned far ahead, bleeding speed gradually. If attacked in those moments, rapid acceleration was rarely available. American pilots recognized the pattern quickly. Chasing jets at 800 kilometers per hour led nowhere. Those attempts ended the same way every time. So pilots stopped chasing. They waited. They began circling jet airfields such as Achmer and Hopston, high above, often unseen. They watched for Me-262s returning low on fuel. They watched for jets beginning their takeoff runs. The approach became known as rat catching. Not a tactic built on speed, but on timing. One of the best-known examples came on October 7th, 1944. Lieutenant Urban Drew was patrolling above Achmer. He spotted two Me-262s taxiing toward the runway. Many pilots would have attacked immediately. Drew did not. He stayed high. He watched them lift off. He waited as the landing gear began to retract. In that moment, speed was low and workload was high. Only then did he dive. Gravity did the rest. Drew's fighter fell like a stone. The first jet was destroyed in seconds. He rolled straight into the second. Both aircraft were lost before either could escape. Speed alone offered no protection on the runway. Tactics were not the only response. American engineers pushed forward with hardware. The result was the P-47M. Late in the War, Republic built a limited number of these aircraft. They were intended to hunt V-1 missiles and jet fighters. The familiar R-280 engine was pushed further. It was upgraded to the C-series, a large CH-5 turbocharger was installed. A wide paddle blade propeller improved control at high speed. Together, the system produced nearly 2,800 horsepower. In level flight, the P-47M reached 473 miles per hour. With war emergency power engaged, speed climbed to 504. The Me-262 still held the advantage at roughly 5 by 140 miles per hour. But the gap had narrowed to just over 30 miles per hour. That margin mattered. If a jet was not fully accelerated or lost energy in a turn, the Thunderbolt could follow it down in a dive. For the first time, a piston fighter could stay in the fight. Ground crews of the 56th Fighter Group went further still. Engines were tuned aggressively. Limits were pushed whenever possible. Their P-47Ms became hunters built for speed. By late April 1945, the war is counted in days. Hitler is underground. The Reich is collapsing. Yet the Luftwaffe still sends its best men into the air. The date is April 26th. Lieutenant General Adolf Galland leads one last unit, JV-44, a small group of elite pilots. Galland flies a Messerschmitt Me-262 armed with R-4M rockets. Ahead of him is a formation of American B-26 Marauder bombers. The attack run unfolds exactly as planned. Speed feels right. Angle is correct. Timing holds. Galland moves his finger onto the firing switch. Nothing happens. For a brief second, surrounded by defensive fire, the truth sets in. One safety switch remains untouched. In that moment, the aircraft offers no forgiveness. Above the fight, Lieutenant James Finnegan patrols in a P-47 Thunderbolt. He notices jet silhouettes cutting through the air below. He does not know who is flying them. He only sees one Me-262 losing speed after a failed attack. Finnegan rolls inverted and enters a split S. In level flight, the jet cannot be caught. In the dive, weight begins to matter. Gravity pulls 8 tons of metal downward. Speed builds rapidly. Finnegan later describes it simply. "The jet was faster," he said, "but nothing dives faster than a Thunderbolt." The P-47 drops hard. Distance collapses. Finnegan eases the nose up to lead the target. For a moment, the massive cowling hides the jet. Then he fires. A 2-second burst of .50 caliber fire connects. Rounds tear into the Me-262's right wing root. The jet engine breaks apart under sustained impact. Galland later records the moment in his memoirs. "A storm of bullets hit me. A heavy blow struck my right knee. The instrument panel shattered completely. I barely kept the aircraft airborne." He adds one final line. "I wanted only one thing: to escape this crate that existed only to die inside." The word matters. He calls the jet a crate. Galland considers bailing out. The thought of being shot while descending stops him. He chooses to attempt a landing instead. Galland guides the damaged jet through cloud toward Riem Airfield. One engine is on dead. The tires are shredded. The field itself is under attack. The Me-262 rolls to a stop at the runway's end. Galland climbs out and dives into a nearby bomb crater. A mechanic later reaches him with a Kettenkrad tractor. The engagement is over. James Finnegan, a civilian schoolteacher in peacetime, flies a piston fighter. He has just brought down a jet flown by Germany's most famous ace. It is not just a personal victory. It marks the closing chapter of the war in the air. Scene from today, the Messerschmitt. Mi-262 remains extraordinary. It was fast beyond anything of its time. It reshaped aviation permanently. But it emerged from desperation. Its engines lacked critical metals and lasted only a handful of hours. Its airframes were assembled by forced labor deep underground. The aircraft reflected the regime that built it. Impressive at first glance. Fragile beneath the surface. It was a final gamble. A belief that technology could reverse reality. As Galland later acknowledged, too much was asked of too little. The P-47, a Thunderbolt, tells a quieter story. It was never described as elegant. Pilots called it the jug, the truck, the flying brick. It was heavy. It burned fuel relentlessly. It sounded like industrial machinery in motion, but it was built around a simple priority: protect the pilot. Alexander Kartveli and Republic's engineers accepted weight and inefficiency. They traded speed for margin. If a young pilot from Kansas made a mistake or flew into concentrated fire, there was still a chance to come home. With a loss rate of roughly 0.7% per mission, the Thunderbolt delivered on that promise. This story was never only about speed or firepower. It was about survival. Thousands of pilots returned home because the Thunderbolt gave them time. They married. They raised families. They lived ordinary lives after extraordinary danger. German ace Heinz Baer once put it plainly: "Wars are decided by survivors, not fallen heroes." The P-47 was not perfect on paper. But for the men who flew it, it was enough.